Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, now that we've breached the second weekend of Diablo 4's beta and properly entered the public beta itself, the whole world is able to play this game this weekend up to level 25. And a big massive difference compared to last weekend's early access is unlocking of the final two classes, the Druid and the Necromancer. Personally, the one I've been most excited to play this entire time is the Druid. It's the class fantasy that I dig the most, and it has very interesting mechanics in theory. So I dove headfirst into it and nearly hit level 25 on the first day. I've seen a lot of people saying that Druid feels weak, but while there is some merit to this, there are also solutions to it. As well, it's a reasonable thing to say, for sure. It is also entirely based on how you build it, because there are some pretty damn strong Druid builds out there right now if you know what you're doing. So today I'm here to share a bit of that knowledge, talk about Druid itself as a base, what it should be, what it can be, and why it's in the place that it is right now. Talk about the general mechanics at play for the Druid that we can take advantage of so we all understand them a bit better. Talk about how you want to gear your Druid as far as equipment goes, some cool legendary aspects that you could create some entire builds around, and then I'll spend some time on the builds that I've tried and seen going around the place, as well as my personal pick for the strongest Druid build currently in the Diablo 4 beta so far. With that then, let's begin with a simple question. What exactly is Diablo 4's Druid? The answer is a ton of things. It is a melee shapeshifter, it is a storm and earth magic ranged caster, it is a companion class, and it's all of these things bundled together into one package. You can choose to focus on any one of these paths individually and achieve pretty high power, or you can choose to mix them together for something even more interesting and potentially greater. On top of this, Druid has probably the best natural crowd control abilities in this game, as a lot of Druid's strongest attacks also have CC components to them. The result of this will be a little bit hard to see in the beta as we are capped at level 25, but once we have higher levels we can take more passives and we can get really good gear with things like tons of bonus damage to crowd controlled enemies, and that's when all of this will really take effect and make you feel extremely strong. So that's the concept, that's the general class fantasy. So what's up with the unique class mechanics that truly separate Druid from the others aside from just its skill tree? Well, at level 15 you will get a quest that you sadly cannot complete in the beta, but this quest unlocks the Spirit Boon system that is a Druid exclusive thing. You'll see when you open the page up here that there are 4 paths. As you kill enemies anywhere in the world of Sanctuary, you'll occasionally have enemies drop an item called a Spirit Offering. As you stock up on these, you'll be able to give these to the ancestral animal spirits in Tol Dulra, which is an area that isn't in the playable beta area, and in exchange you will get a permanent passive buff to your character. It seems like generally you'll only be able to have one of these paths active at a time, the stag, the bird, the wolf, or the snake, but once you've unlocked every possible boon, you unlock the Spirit Bond at the bottom here, which lets you select a bonus boon from a different path as well. Sadly, we have limited details on this, we don't really know what the buffs are, but this means that we'll unlock loads of different passive bonuses that we don't currently have a bit further into the game, and this could be a partial contribution to the general community feeling that the Druid seems a bit weak so far. We're simply missing our entire unique class mechanic in the beta. On top of that, Druid also has the unique mechanic of Crushing Blow. This is a lucky hit chance mechanic that only applies from earth spells, and when it triggers it just chunks off a piece of a health bar of your opponent, dealing massive maximum health percentage damage, which is in theory ridiculously strong, especially against bosses with their high health pools. If you've been playing Druid, you may be a bit confused by this mechanic, and the reason for that is, again, it just isn't in the beta for whatever reason. I've seen a few sources say that they weren't happy with the balancing on this mechanic yet, and so they literally have just removed it for the beta. It should be a part of the full game, it was part of an earlier beta test, it's just fully gone for the beta weekend though, the public beta weekend, for whatever reason. I don't really agree with this choice as it makes the class feel significantly different than it would otherwise. It's not really a good example of how it will feel in the proper game, and this is definitely a major contributor to the community's current feelings about Druid, as Crushing Blow is a really important mechanic that for whatever reason is just gone.
Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
So basically that's everything as far as what Druid is and what Druid should be. So what can Druid be in the beta? What does gear do for it? Legendary aspects and builds? Well, as far as gear, there are a few things that you really want to focus on depending on what you're going for. The 3 main attributes for Druid are intelligence, willpower, and dexterity, with willpower being your most important one by a mile. Intelligence increases your resource generation, but willpower increases all skill damage, which is what quantifies it as your main attribute. It also increases healing received, and pretty importantly, it increases overpower damage as well. There are a number of overpower based builds for Druid, so this actually does matter quite a lot. Then dexterity increases your crit chance and dodge chance, and again there are some pretty good crit build options for Druid too, so crit chance is great to have. Other than that, movement speed on any armor piece that you can get it is great. Druid is mostly a melee class with some exceptions, so being able to move quicker and get out of the more damaging attacks easier is helpful. Then it depends what your build leans towards. My build has a little bit of a mix of everything and so my stats are a little bit eclectic. Generally, the stats on armor and weapons that you want to aim for are core skill damage increase, overpower damage increase, vulnerability damage increase, and crit affecting stats too, whether it be crit chance or crit damage. Past that, damage against crowd-controlled enemies is incredible for Druid no matter what. You want willpower, of course, thorns are always nice on your armor, and fortify generation is pretty good too considering the amount of fortify that Druid can achieve. As far as legendary aspects then, I've seen quite a few interesting ones available. There are a bunch that boost werewolf skills, doing things like make Shred deal 20% of its damage as a bonus lightning AoE around it, and there's also one that makes Blood Howl increase crit chance and also affect companions and allied players. There are a few that affect werebear skills as well, you'll see as I scroll past, but Earth has by far the most interesting ones to me. For example, you can make Pulverizer, which is a werebear skill, count as an Earth skill and get Earth skill bonuses. There's one that gives you +2 ranks in every Earth skill when you have Fortify, which is far more often than not for most builds. There is one that makes Earth skills deal 40% more critical strike damage to crowd-controlled enemies, which may sound a bit specific, but is surprisingly easy to achieve, and that's only a selection of the ones that I think are good enough to write home about. All of those speak to potential builds, but what are the builds that we have right now in the beta as of level 25? Well, there are 3 major separate paths that you can go. One of them is going hard into shapeshifting, with most players favoring the werewolf. You can go full on werewolf mode, pick up all the werewolf skills, and you get pretty good damage over time, decent crit chance, good movement speed, and just high attack speed in melee, which is pretty good, but it struggles a bit with wave clear compared to bosses. Then you have a totally different build, which is the Storm build. This lets you play at long range rather than having Druid as a melee class. It focuses on things like Tornado and the Cataclysm ultimate ability to just rain down storm damage from a distance. This one is exceptional at wave clear, but sort of lacking against bosses. Then you have my personal build that I've been fiddling with since the start. I've seen some other people start to come up with similar things too, which tells me I'm onto something strong here, and this one mixes a couple of extremely strong abilities and tries to get the most out of them. It's 2 core skills and 1 basic skill that matter a lot here too. The other skills in the build all exist to make those 3 things stronger, and while they are a bit changeable, they are up to personal preference, I think my setup is pretty ideal. So let's go from the top then. Start off with Storm Strike. This is essentially a melee with a chain lightning effect, bouncing to up to 4 enemies total, and it's the modifiers that make it special, giving it a 15% chance to immobilize enemies, which counts for the entire lightning chain by the way. Then also the left choice gives it a straight up 50% chance to cause the vulnerable debuff. 50%! That is insane, especially for a basic skill. Then we come to our core skills, and the first one that you'll want to pick up is Pulverize. This will likely be a part of the majority of Druid builds in general, because the first enhancement node for it makes it guaranteed to overpower once every 10 seconds while you're above 80% health. Overpower just makes an attack add your health and fortify total into its damage, which is a nasty strong modifier to have. Then we also have the modifier to make it so anytime Pulverize overpowers an enemy, it will also stun them for 2 seconds. Then we come into the thing that makes all of this come together, which is Landslide. This ability is decent at its base, but it's the way that it scales with extra levels that makes it start to get special. It goes up by 11% damage with every rank, which is notably more than most abilities, and so its final rank spot is actually pretty strong. Then we also have modifiers on it, the first of which makes it immobilize things it hits after damaging 4 enemies. Then the big one here is the addition of the Terramote system. You generate a Terramote every time that you immobilize or stun an enemy, which happens both with our basic skill and with Pulverize, and every time that you use Landslide, you get a guaranteed critical hit for each Terramote. It consumes a Terramote for that hit. So you build up Terramotes, then you spend them on free crits on an already insanely high damage ability. After that, we start loading up on defensive abilities. You want Debilitating Roar as it's the strongest of these, straight up reducing the damage of nearby enemies by 50% for 4 seconds. Then our enhancements make it give you 22% Fortify on activation, which is nuts. Then one that also makes it heal you for 4% of your max health each second while active. Then we also have Earthen Bulwark, which creates a barrier around you for a few seconds. The first enhancement for this makes you unstoppable, so you can use this to break crowd control. Then we also have one that makes it give you 18% of your max health as Fortify. Again, remember that we have a guaranteed overpower every 10 seconds on Pulverize, and so that overpower uses your Fortify for its damage increase. Tankiness sort of means damage in this build, which is lovely. Then we take a point in Ancestral Fortitude for 5% non-physical damage reduction. We completely ignore the companion side of the tree here, and we completely ignore the Wrath skills outside of passives, where we have 3 ranks in Crushing Earth, which makes Earth skills do 15% increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies, which of course affects our Landslide. We also have a lot of methods of crowd control, including our ultimate ability over here, which is Petrify. This turns all nearby enemies to stone for a few seconds and makes them take 25% increased critical strike damage. The critical strike damage bonus is doubled against bosses, and the duration is increased to 7 seconds, which makes Landslide provide a fantastic single target skill combined with this as well. Then of course the enhancements to this make it last 1 second longer and also give you spirit when you kill an enemy that is petrified. As for legendaries then, I haven't gotten lucky enough to get the majority of the special ones myself quite yet, but the ones that you'll want to aim for are core skills that deal increased damage based on your fortify amount, pulverize becoming an earth skill to get the earth skill bonuses, earth skills boosted by 2 levels when you have fortify, earth skills deal more critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies, and then some nice ones to have that don't do a massive amount to the ones that make all earth skills slow enemies, and the one that makes earth and bulwark last longer. And a big thing about this build is that it will only get actually stronger in the live game when crushing blow is a thing, as we are using landslide as our main single target damage anyways, and that will have that lovely crushing blow proc chance. And that's it everyone, an overview of Druid as a whole, every little piece of knowledge that I have to share with you to take advantage of in the rest of this open public beta and beyond, looking forward towards the full game release. I hope this video has helped you in some way, and if you have any helpful Druid tips, leave them down in the comments for your fellow players to learn and improve. Like if you like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.